Hey G fans, GojiFan93 here, and well, I got another review for you guys. It's been a while since I've done a review. What I will be reviewing today is the Volume 1 of the Gamera movie, or the Showa Gamera films on Blu-ray. So, the reason why I'm not going to be reviewing the Showa Gamera films individually is because I don't really have a lot to talk about with each movie, so I'm just kind of gonna, do the Volume 1 of these 4 films, and then after I'm finished watching the next 4 films on Volume 2, I will then give you my thoughts on that. So this is less of a review. I mean, when I do my reviews, they're more thoughts. I'm not really like the guy who does a review and has all these points to it. I mean, unless it's like a toy review or something. But when it comes to a movie, I just kind of want to talk about it, and especially when it comes to these Gamera Showa films. So okay, for those of you who do not know my history with Gamera, let me just start it here. I hated Gamera when I was a kid because I loved Godzilla. I didn't really know any other Toho or any other monsters besides Godzilla. Also I did know about the Universal monsters like Frankenstein, Wolfman, Creature from Black Lagoon. I mean, I knew those ones because my dad showed me those as well. But when it came to Japanese monsters, it was really just Godzilla, and that was it. And the first time I heard Gamera, I was like, wow, it's like a poor man's version of Godzilla, and it was, it looks so stupid, a turtle being a monster. I would ridicule it all the time. And also, I'm sorry, I still have a little bit of a cold from the convention, so if you bear with me with that. But then when I started my channel, a lot of people were curious about my thoughts on Gamera, and I was like the same way. I was like, I didn't really like Gamera. I think he's cheesy. It's more cheesy. It's less. The special effects aren't as good. I saw clips of the Showa films on YouTube. I just did not have a good outlook on Gamera. But then I finally bought the Gamera trilogy, which is the Heisei series for Gamera, and completely changed my views on Gamera, and I love that Gamera trilogy. The Gamera 3 Revenge of Iris, if you haven't seen it, I did do a review of the Heisei movies, so you can go check those out. But the Gamera 3 movie, I said that this is one of the finest trilogies I have ever seen, and some of those Gamera films are better than some Godzilla films, even in the Heisei series. So I was blown away with that. So I was like, okay, now that I've watched those Gamera films, obviously I kind of spoiled myself because I watched the Heisei first before the Showa, so obviously when I go to the Showa, it's going to be a little bit of a difference, but when it comes to Godzilla, I have respect for the Showa era. Even when it comes to other Toho monsters like War of the Gargantuans or King Kong Escapes or Frankenstein Conquer the World. Like, I have respect for those old films, and I understand that it was the time, that was how movies were done. And my favorite is the Heisei series. I like the 80s and 90s better than I do the Showa, but I still have my respect for the Showa, and I love them as, you just Kid Wonder and all that stuff. But anyways, Gamera, on the other hand, when it comes to the Showa films, they, at least Volume 1, these first 4 films did nothing for me. I was bored, very underwhelmed, and so let's start with the first film. So we have Gamera, they call it the giant monster from 1965. So this film is, basically, my thoughts on it is that it copies, well, it doesn't copy Godzilla, well, it sort of does, because the first film, it's in black and white, the monster's created by a nuclear bomb, and Gamera's a bad guy. He basically goes around destroying everything, just like Godzilla was in the first film. The only difference is that Gamera is a unique monster. That's the only thing about the first film that I found very unique was Gamera himself. He's a turtle. You just look at him, you're like, whoa, that's interesting. It's a kind of interesting design, but also the fact that they try to turn him around on his back so that he can't get up, but when he does, he ends up using his jets and starts flying around. You realize, like, oh god, he flies around. Also the fact that he sucks up fire and that he can spit it out. That's basically his breath, I guess, his breath attack. But other than that, the movie itself, I'm not really going to go into story or characters because, guys, like I said, I fell asleep through most of these movies, so I'm not really going to talk about like story-wise here. But it was basically a normal, standard monster film. Even the soundtrack was very I'm gonna compare Godzilla a little bit to this, at least to the first one. Well, I might compare it to the other ones too, but Godzilla had a unique soundtrack. Even for 54, it's still, like, Akira Ifukube made such a... The soundtrack is not stereotypical. It doesn't sound like every other monster movie out there. The Gamera film, on the other hand, it sounded like every other monster movie at the time. It just has, the loud trumpets, I don't know how to really say it, but you guys know what I'm talking about. It just sounds like a standard. The soundtrack wasn't really anything special. The effects, I'm confused at this too, 1965, I mean, why was it black and white? Was it because of budget constraints or anything like that? And also I forgot to say, this is Daiei. The company behind Gamera is Daiei. And they're always trying to get up where Toho is, but Toho's just way above them, I guess. But I'm just wondering why it was in black and white. Maybe it was to lower costs or whatever, but it just seems like they're really copying Godzilla like as much as they can without, anyways. So the first film, though, overall, it was a standard movie or monster movie film. It's not bad, it's not masterful. I wouldn't say it would change your whole perspective. Like when you watch the first Godzilla movie, it's like, wow, that movie was a masterpiece. The first Gamera film, it's just another monster film. It's nothing really special, in my opinion. So we move on to the next film, Gamera vs. Barugon from 1966. Now, don't get confused with Baragon. This is Barugon, even though Barugon looks a lot like Baragon. The only difference is that Barugon is this monster that basically his tongue like shoots out and it shoots ice, which is pretty cool. He could freeze things. Once again, the thing with these movies is that the monsters are creative. It's just the story and the special effects and everything around the monsters is not interesting at all. But Barugon is actually pretty cool. The other thing that he does is he shoots rainbows from his back. I don't know. This is the 60s. Maybe they were smoking something. Godzilla's had his fair share of some really weird things. So Gamera, but Gamera takes it up a notch. I mean, he these films are woo. But for his, and obviously this is his second film. Just like with Godzilla, he fights another monster. Only this time, this is in color. So Godzilla had 2 films in black and white. Gamera only had 1. So okay, that's a bit of a difference. But yeah, Gamera versus Barugon. It's a very, once again, standard monster brawl. That's basically what it is. The monster fighting itself, though, isn't really that engaging. I kind of was like, okay, well, this, it's cool. There's monsters fighting. All right, okay. I kind of fell asleep. The human scenes are completely. I forgot everything. I mean, I just saw this last night, and I forgot everything that happened in the film. Like, there were guys trying to get a stone, like some kind of stone off this island, and the stone ended up being the egg, and it ended up hatching Barugon. And there was some love interest. I don't know, something with that, but the characters were not interesting. I didn't really care for the characters. This story was just bland, and the special effects were. It just seems like when I see a Toho film in the same year, this was 1966, it just seems like Godzilla looked better than Gamera did. I don't know what the difference is. I just, like, when it comes to the suit, the suits in Gamera look a little bit cheaper than they do with Godzilla. I don't know if it's the difference between Toho's, the way they do stuff, and the way Daiei does their stuff. I don't know, but that's just, my opinion. I know I have a lot of Gamera fans who watch me, and guys, don't get me wrong, I think Gamera's awesome because of the Gamera trilogy. I love the Gamera trilogy, but these Showa films, like I said, I was spoiled. I watched that first before I saw this, and I also had my previous conceptions about Gamera anyways, about the Showa films. I knew I wasn't gonna really love them. I knew I was just kind of gonna watch them and go, okay, well, at least I saw the old Gamera films. But so Godzilla vs. Barugon, it's all right. It's not the craziest Gamera film because they do get crazier. It's probably the most tame, probably the most grounded Gamera film there is. And Barugon is actually not a bad monster. So but still underwhelming. Okay, so then we move on to Gamera versus Gauss from 1967. Now, Gauss he actually was in the Heisei series as the first enemy in Guardian of the Universe. Now, I was excited to see Gauss in his Showa form because I saw him in the Heisei and he was pretty awesome. I think Gauss is basically Gamera's arch enemy, just like King Ghidorah is for Godzilla. So it was cool to see Gauss in his first appearance, and it was pretty cool when he showed up. The battles were actually pretty interesting in Godzilla. I almost said Godzilla in Gamera versus Gauss, but. Holy crap, the story was so boring. Oh my god, I was forcing myself to continue to watch. I wanted to hit the fast forward so bad. I felt like I was a kid again. Like, do you guys remember when you were kids? And well, at least for my older audience, do you remember when you were kids and you? Well, actually no, this actually fits for my younger audience right now. If you guys watch the films and you would just want to skip to it till the monster fights, that's what I wanted to do, but I forced myself to continue to watch the human parts, and it was so boring. Something about this roadway that they were trying to build to this village, and some kind of progress thing, and then Gauss pops out of nowhere, Gamera pops out of nowhere, and they fight, and that's it. And it's just, once again, it's just underwhelming. I wasn't hanging off the edge of my seat like I was with the Gamera trilogy or even some of the Godzilla Showa films. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It's just these. I don't know what's about it. I don't know. But Godzilla versus Gamera versus Gauss. You see, it's just I got Godzilla in the brain. It's once again, it's just underwhelming in my opinion. Gauss is pretty cool as a monster, but I definitely prefer to see him in the Heisei series. He's just. It's better. Alright, so the last film for the Volume 1 DVD is Gamera vs. Virus. I think it's Virus or Virus. I don't know which, but I'm going to pronounce it Virus just because that sounds cooler. This movie was from 1968. Now, I think that this film, 1968, that was the same year that Destroy All Monsters came out, and I believe the alternate title for this was called Destroy All Planets. So it's like Dai is not even trying. They're just like, just rip off Toho. Just instead of calling it Destroy All Monsters, just call it Destroy All Planets. It's just kind of okay. But so this enemy Virus, it was this movie sucked. I'm sorry. This one I was so annoyed with because not only do you have two kid actors who are so annoying, they constantly say, Gamera, 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 do this, do that. When Gamera was fighting Virus, it was the most annoying fight because it would keep on cutting to the kids saying, Gamera, do this, Gamera, do that. And I'm like, shut up and let Gamera fight. Oh, so I mean, the story is just so long. There's no monster fights until the very end. And like I said, when you're going to do that, if you're going to keep a monster fight to the very end, at least make the human elements interesting, like it was in Godzilla 2014, right? Because they kept the final battle to the end, but at least the human parts you were kind of excited for. This one, on the other hand, oh my god, I was so bored out of my mind. I was like, oh man. Whew. And the monster Virus, he wasn't cool in my opinion. I thought the monster was really silly looking. Even for a Showa film, it was silly. I mean, like, really silly. I'm sorry. There were some parts that I was kind of cringing at just because of how silly this was. So, yeah. Once again, underwhelming. This is probably the worst film in my opinion out of the Volume 1. So, and also my thoughts so far on what I've seen in these Showa films. There's a pattern that it wasn't. I think it was sort of a pattern in the trilogy, but I don't think it was as pronounced, I guess, or noticeable. Because in here, it always seems like Gamera fights the enemy, but then he gets owned, and then he has to retreat, and then he comes back for the final battle. Unlike where Godzilla gets his ass kicked at the beginning, but then he somehow manages to find the power or the ways to then end up winning at the end. But it was just a pattern that I noticed, and it'll probably be in the other ones when I see those from the Volume 2 disc. But man, I was underwhelmed with watching these. I was excited. I was very excited to watch, where Gamera started out. And, after watching all four of these films on this first disc, I say the best one on this disc would have to be the first one, Gamera, the giant monster, that's kind of a lame title, but just the first Gamera film from 1965. I think that is the best film from this 4-disc or 4-movie set. Now it is on 1 disc. So there's not 4 discs, it's all in 1 disc, which is pretty nice. The Blu-ray, now I want to talk about, because I'm talking about this whole collection, I want to talk about the Blu-ray itself. It looks good. It definitely makes the films look really, really crystal clear. I couldn't tell a lot of, like, you know, when you're watching old films, there's like little, what do they say, like cigarette marks that they say that are on films when they were editing it, like the guys would, you know, like little cigarette things would hit the film, and that's what makes the little weird spark, like, I don't know what you call it, but it looked really good. They cleaned it up. The movies look really fantastic from a Blu-ray display standpoint. The special effects, though, in the movies themselves, yeah, definitely could have been better, even for show at times, because Godzilla did way better. Even like War of the Gargantuans looked so much better. I mean, I haven't seen War of the Gargantuans, but from what I've seen on YouTube and stuff, it looks really good, and I really need to watch that film. But, you know, Frankenstein Conquers the World, it just seems like Toho was a little bit more... It seemed like they had more of a budget. I don't know. It's probably because they had Godzilla and they made more money, and Daiei was like, well, we got to have a flagship monster for us. So, so yeah, I'm sorry to say, but I really did not enjoy these films. They were just underwhelming. That's all I can say. I mean, they were, you know, except for Godzilla, or Gamera versus Virus, probably being the one that I actually hated. The other 3, they were just underwhelming, and I just, you know, I was like, okay, well, at least I got to see the Gamera films in the show at times. So we'll see what it comes with Volume 2. It'll probably be the same thing, just because I'm just not impressed. Yeah, and it's also probably coming from me being a Godzilla fan my whole life and just now watching Gamera. It's probably that as well. So it's probably not fair to Gamera to be doing that, but I know the Showa series can look better and be more entertaining movies than what I saw with this. So, but that's basically my review for the Gamera Volume 1 on Blu-ray with the first 4 films of the Showa series. So I will then watch the other 4 on Volume 2 and do a review on that. And then after that, I won't be doing the trilogy because I've already done a review of those, so you can go check those out. I did them like a year ago, but you can still check those out. So after these Showa films, I will then review Gamera the Brave. So we'll see with that one as well. But yeah, so that's it for my review. And you know, sorry if I ticked off a lot of Gamera fans. I just didn't find them entertaining. So, but that's my review. So thank you guys so much for watching. Stay big, G fans.